Good evening, fellow Plexers, or good morning, I should say. I'm going to make a quick video for Brett before I head off to bed. Where is he posting? Plex Family, I think. Or is it Plex Pals? I don't know which group it is now. Sorry, group. So he's having trouble. He's created a kids movie library for his grandkids or grandchild, and he can't add more than 160 movies to it. If he pulls movies out, it scans and adjusts to the lower number, but if he tries to add more than 160, it just won't scan. So I've got the way he's named a movie, it's not fully compliant. It's a scene release name, but it should scan in. I've already tested that. But when I saw this screenshot, this is what concerned me, plus another one that told me he was using a shared networks folder structure. Let me find that first. Try not to give his name away. Full name. All right, give me a second here. Okay, so I see the word shared folder, Plex, and a library folder named Movies Kids. So let me go back to the other screenshot, and then I'll talk a little bit about what should be, and then we'll come up with a test for Brett to run and see if that's his issue. Okay, so I wanted access to this. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my folder structure. Let me back up. This is my old Synology NAS. Let's talk about a couple things generally. I don't think they apply to Brett, but someone might be watching who's new to all this. This older Sino NAS has two different Plex servers installed on it. One is a traditional bare metal install. It's a Synology package install. It's in this shared media or this shared folder. It's not a media folder. Plex, no matter where it's installed, except for a Mac, I have no Mac experience. When you drill down into the application folder structure, you'll eventually reach a folder named Plex Space Media Space Server. And inside that is all your application files and folders. This is the same for every install. Buried in the Windows folder structure, you'll eventually come to Plex Space Media Place Server, and you can right click and copy that to someplace, move it to a Linux system, a NAS, which is always Linux, and transplant a server, because that's always the same. So on this NAS, I have a Docker container running, so all of those application files are in this shared Docker folder. And here's my folder for the Plex application files. And you see if I drill down far enough, I get that same universal Plex media server, and inside it all the same folders and files from the other installed. This is the same under Ubuntu, it's the same under Debian, it's the same under Unraid, the same under Windows. You can move the server around. The only server you can't transplant, or I haven't figured out how, is the Snap package version under Ubuntu. I can't move that successfully, and I don't know why. All right, so again, media cannot go into the application folder on any OS. So I have a shared media folder, and then I have a sort folder for every type of Plex library. So this is what I'm wondering, Brett. Are these individual shared folders? Because if they are, it may be a permission issue somehow. Everything adds fine in the movies shared folder, but not to the movie kids shared folder. Up to 160 and then it stops. So I'm thinking permission issue if this is your NAS and these are all individual shared folders. What's confusing me is this config folder. I don't know how you'd have a config shared folder, but I'm not even sure if these are shared folders to start with. the other screenshot had the word shared folder in it, and like, I don't know until I know, right? So anyway, generally, you would have a shared media folder. Then most people just have a flat structure. Their movie library, their kids' movie library, their kids' documentary, or their documentary movie library, a concert library, 2 or 3 photo libraries, a music library, and then a couple TV show libraries. I don't like that flat structure. I prefer a nested structure. So there's a sort folder for every type of Plex library, plus a spot for incoming files with a trash guides install. That having it all together in one shared folder creates the ability to have instant atomic moves, which the trash guides talk about. Now, this music folder is named simply because this is actually a library folder, because you're not really likely to have multiple music libraries. If I was going to have multiple music libraries, this would be named movie or music dash libraries like the rest of them. So what this allows is a nested structure. So here's the folder you point a 4K library at. Here's a folder you point a movie concert library at, documentary, one for DVR if you want it, kids, main. And I have a test folder structure, and I've named this like I would with FileBot. Not Brett's way, but I tested it earlier before I recorded it his way, and it scanned in fine. All right, Brett, so if my suspicion is right that these are shared folders, we can do a test using this. Now, unfortunately, your main movie library will scan all these in too, but this is just a test to see if you can get past the 160 level. So, what I want you to do is go into that movie library, and I'll use this as a substitution. Create a sort folder for that. Call it movie tests, or call it movie kids test, whatever you want, just so you can find it. And then, I know it's moving a lot of files around. Take those files and either cut them and paste them or copy them into that test structure. Now, go back to Plex with a web app. Let me refresh this. All right, so I'm at this area. I'm on this test server. I have multiple ones running. And I'm down to manage libraries, and I can see everything. So I had that test movie structure, which I moved the movies out of. And now, because those movies are part of this structure, they all scanned in. But this is already working for you in your main movie library. Do this now. Create a test library. I already have a test one, so I'm going to name it test 2. And then browse to that specific sort folder. So this is the alias for my real structure in the Docker container. I'll go into the movie library sort folder, and then into the main movie library. And now I'm just going to select this test folder I created. Then I'm going to add it and add library. And then this is where I want to see if you can scan past 160 movies. Because if you can, and this is a shared folder separate from this one, it's some sort of permission issue. And it should not be hard to track down, because if you can view your existing permissions on this shared folder, or these 2 shared folders, or the music one, take some screenshots of all the settings, and then visit the settings of this shared folder to make sure everything matches. That's the only reason I can come up with that anything over 160 movies will scan. Now, in the thread, you said you're running a Windows server, so I guess you're probably pointing it to network storage. Now, this is not an issue under Windows, but because someone else might be viewing this video, if you're running a Linux server, there's a warning under libraries under setting about scanning automatically. Right here, include music libraries and automatic updates. The warning is Linux systems limit the maximum number of watch directories. This may cause problems with large music libraries. Now, it won't manifest as Brett's problem, but how Linux keeps track of new files is through a subsystem called IO Notify, which under Linux usually has a default limit of 8,192 folders. Generally, you're not going to have a movie and TV show library that has that many folders to get into trouble. But the minute you add in a music library, you might have that many folders between the artist folder and then all the album folders. And if there's any subfolders in the album folder, you could get into trouble by crossing that line. And the solution is always easy. Just turn off automatic scanning and change to a time scan, whatever you want. All right, so that's general advice. That's not Brett advice because I don't think that's his issue with a Windows server pointing to network storage. Okay, so before this gets too long, that's the experiment I would run, Brett. And if you think it's a likely solution, you really don't have to run that experiment. Just look at the permissions for the folders that do work, if these are all shared folders, and take some screenshots to refer to, and check the settings of this shared folder to make sure the permissions are the same all over. Anyway, that's my best guess right now until I get further feedback from you. Everybody else, happy Plexing, and it's Plex bedtime.